Hey, Paul. Hey, Nadine. Can you guys hear me?
Hi.
Hi. Hi. How are you guys?
Good, and you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good.
Fantastic. Can't complain.
Naledi, sorry man, while we're waiting for the race to come on, I'm trying to record, but it says you need to give me permission.
Okay.
Yes.
Where are you asking for permission?
I'm not sure
Where do I
how to
go on?
do that.
To
But I'm
video.
recording.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but I'm
recording.
recording.
It's
So
recording
it's
already.
fine. And I'm recording on cloud.
Okay, all right, okay. I just wanted to do it for backup, but then that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it will be fine.
All right. Let me just check with our moderator who is her name, because I've got some people here, but I just need to check because it's not showing her name. It's just other people I'm seeing. Um,
Hey,
Hey,
boo.
Katia. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Where are you? Are you on?
Yes, I actually was trying to log on now, but it's still waiting for her.
Okay. Who are you? Because I'm seeing a list of people, so I need to admit you. So I need to know who you are quickly before I admit the other. Who? There's Tembega, there's Sharon, there's Litulu, Sybil. What is your name?
Let me go back. Maybe check me out for the call game. Let me go back.
Okay, I see you. Hey, Cindy. Can you hear us?
Still connecting. Okay.
Hi, Cindy.
Mabatu, you are
We
on
can't hear you,
mute.
Cindy. Cindy, we can't hear you.
Okay. Hello.
You're on mute. Hi.
Is that better?
How are you? Yes,
I'm
much
good.
better. Good, good, good. So, Cindy, this is everyone. There's Mabatu. There's Mpo. That's Nodine. Nodine is from the office. She works with us,
Okay.
and she's just basically just going to make sure that everything goes well. And then obviously me. So,
Yes.
guys, this is Cindy. Cindy's going to be, she's a fellow speaker. So I decided to bring her onto the platform just to, get her to moderate this for us. So, yeah. Okay, so I think we're almost ready. It's almost 3 o'clock. So what we usually do, Cindy, we don't start at 3 o'clock exactly. We kind of like give it about, 3 to 5 minutes to wait for additional
For everyone
participants
to join. Okay.
to join. Yeah. So
Okay.
we'll just be welcoming everybody as they come on.
Okay. All righty. That's fine. Excellent.
Okay.
Excited.
Yes.
Are there going to be intros?
Yes. Yes. Cindy will do that.
Okay.
Okay, Cindy, I think we can start, and as we go along, I'll let in more participants.
Okay, I think that is fine. We can certainly do that. Okay, I think I'm also ready to go. Let me just get my camera intact a bit. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So welcome back to the Daliso Holdings weekly webinar. As you've heard Naledi introduce me, my name is Sindisiwe Mhlongo, and I'm very excited and honored to be here and moderate today's webinar section. It's quite interesting and exciting to see so many recurring attendees, because that means that you are getting the content that you need to keep you alive during this time. Okay, so Daliso Holdings provides these platforms to discuss pertinent current affairs, okay, and to share information and, you know, and provide a wide perspective and answers to our clients, our business partners, employees, and the general public out there. So Daliso Holdings provides the following services, okay? It's full human resources services, labor relations services, life and business coaching, recruitment and selection, training and development, your psychometric assessments, strategy, OD, and change management, plus employee wellness, which is quite important as we navigate ourselves through the COVID-19 and everyone finding themselves in the lockdown. So as you saw the topic today, we are discussing the new normal post-COVID-19 and its impact on the world business, okay? So COVID-19 has basically changed everything that was normal to us, and we can't return to it because perhaps that normal was the problem and it just wasn't working. So the COVID-19 pandemic has come precisely at a time where we just need to pause for a moment and to use the time for reflection and some introspection, okay? So basically this global pandemic could either further entrench your neoliberal structures, or we could use this opportunity to create, you know, radical change, okay? So before COVID-19 turned the world upside down, we had already made significant progress by transforming business through the use of incredible innovative capabilities. However, the pressure cooker effect of the pandemic has accelerated this pace by bringing the future to us. There's so many things we didn't know we could do basically at a drop of a pen, but that are happening right now in so many industries, right? So as a result, many of us are starting to challenge the basic assumptions about our careers, the workplace, business operations, or our use of technology, and many other related issues to the disruptions associated with this pandemic. So post-COVID-19, and when the lockdown measures are finally lifted in full, what do you expect the new workplace to look like? Okay, what would the new norm be like? Okay, so I have a quote here from Gaia Vince, an author of BBC News, who suggests the following. I'm just going to read from it. She says, a number of possible futures all depend on how government, societies, and business respond to the crisis to rebuild, produce better, and something more humane. Okay, so today we're very lucky to have an esteemed panel of experts joining us to unpack this topic, okay? So I'd like now to introduce you to our panel, who are established business women I look up to in their own rights, and they're going to share insights on what the new normal is going to look like post-COVID-19, okay? Let me first start by introducing the organizer of this webinar and the CEO of Daliso Holdings, Naledi Gallant, whom you've seen at the start of this video. She's a serial entrepreneur a life and business coach, okay, who has recently been selected in the top 50 thriving female founders, South Africa, okay? So Dalito Holding was a top 5 nominee as HR Consultancy of the Year 2019 and Employer of Choice, Small to Medium 2019. This is a business that started in 2005. And our second member on the panel is Mabato Mokiti. She's a co-founder of Redshift Technologies and Dream Girls Academy, okay? She's a mathematician, yes, very smart, turned impact entrepreneur with a passion for education and youth development, with accolades such as being recognized as one of Mail and Guardian top 200 young South Africans, yes. She's also gotten an award with WEF Global Shaper and was also on the 100 most influential people in South Africa. And our last esteemed member on this panel is Mpho Mpofu. She's a founder and director of Masutane Consulting Services. It's a market research agency providing market insight to corporates across the SADC region, right? She is a member of the Qualitative Research Consultants Association in the United States of America, and also part of the South African Market Association and the Professional Speakers, this Professional Speakers Association in South Africa, and also has several accolades like Global Outreach Scholarship winner and a conference speaker at Keep Qual Human. Okay, so we also have a chat room. Please feel free to send through any questions and comments, and we will look through those as the webinar proceeds. But for now, we are going to get straight into it. If my panel is ready.
Yes, we are, Cindy. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Okay, thank you. You're most welcome. We are excited to hear from you guys with everything that you have challenged, that you have challenged yourselves to do and achieve thus far. So Naledi, I am going to start with you. This question is for you. So can you tell me, what does the new normal mean for HR and business overall? What employment legislation changes will there be, and why?
Okay, thank you so much for that. It's quite a pertinent one, given, you know, all of the changes that have taken place at this point in time. The implication is that companies will have to, I think can everybody mute? Thank you so much. I think the implication is that companies will have to rethink and not just tweak their business models. This pandemic has just brought about a whole new ballgame. And instead, companies will have to build and strengthen and back up their safety plans. And then this could actually mean deeper layers of succession planning or significantly expanding work at home capabilities for more of the employees, because we're now starting to see a shift in terms of remote work. So enabling and facilitating those capabilities for employees is actually going to be the new normal that we're going to see. And because necessity is often the mother of invention, this pandemic can actually bring about some positive outcomes whereby individuals, communities, businesses, and government, you know, we are all learning new ways to connect. And so businesses are also finding faster and cheaper ways to operate. And we are now seeing how these types of communication channels such as Zoom have gone viral. Remote working has soared in the last couple of months. And so these changes could make for better management and more flexible workforces. And that would basically be the new normal. Flexible workforces where work as we knew before is going to be very different. It's going to be a lot more fluid. We're going to start seeing more contract-like employment as opposed to permanent work. We'll start seeing team management where people come together to work as a team for project-based type of work. So those are kind of like the types of new ways of working that we will start seeing post-COVID-19. So job security, you know, working for the same organization until you retire, those are sort of, you know, the types of things that we will be seeing less and less of, you know. So people will start having to become more innovative. We're going to start seeing more of the gig economy, where people start living off of their passions. So you'll start seeing somebody doing more than one. So you'll be contracting, maybe working as a chef, and in the evening working as a graphic designer or something else, you know? So those are kind of like the types of changes that the new normal that we will see for business and in HR. And from a legislation perspective, at this point, there are no definitive answers yet, but I foresee changes in the leave legislation in terms of unpaid and sick leave. Those will most likely be revisited. And, you know, we'll see changes in that area. And then I also think Section 189 of the Retrenchment Act, we might probably see some focus on maybe provision being made for temporary retrenchments. So maybe that could be something that we can look at to try and see how we can accommodate some of these changes that have been brought about by this COVID-19. And then I also think that from companies, policies with regards to working from home, a bit more flexibility in terms of working hours. So those are kind of like some of the changes that we will start seeing. And hopefully, you know, government will start legislating on that. But at this point in time, it's no clear cut. So that is primarily where we stand from a legislative point of view. Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, thank you very much, Naledi, for that very detailed answer. I couldn't agree with you more. It's up to the government, obviously, from a legislative aspect to make sure that the needs of the business aligned with the needs of the employees are catered for in the legislation, and to make sure that, you know, rights and we adapt, we formally adapt to the changes, not just informally because of a pandemic. But I'm going to move on to the next question, and this one is for our next panelist, Paul. Paul, if you can just tell us, okay, so preparing for opening the economy and lifting, okay, lockdown to level 3. As a nation, what would your recommendation be of marketing strategies for businesses to adopt, if not having already adopted, with your, obviously, your marketing acumen?
Hi, thank you for that question, Cindy Siwe. I want to just send a shout out to Asanda Ndaba with the baby on her back. Hey, big ups to you. This is the new normal. This is the new normal. My son has been on many meetings with me, and this is part of our new normal. This is how we're going to have to shift things around and make them work. And this is how we're building future entrepreneurs, because there is your child on your back listening to this conversation. Well done to you. So coming back to that question, so it's very difficult for me to separate myself from being a business owner and a market research strategist. So when people start to talk about marketing efforts right at the beginning, I tend to sort of say, no, we need to hold back a little bit, because there's a step before the marketing process. Now, what is happening to people at home is that they're going through a transformation. And what does transformation mean? It means that they are changing. So the first thing that we're going to have to do as businesses is to reacquaint ourselves with our customers, right? To understand this change. Who are they now, right? Understand how this pandemic has affected their psyche, because the impact on the psyche is going to impact the way they define value. which is what you as a business are selling, right? So it's going to be pertinent for you as a business owner to understand how the value definition of a customer has changed. Understand how their needs now within the industry that you're operating in, how those have changed, right? And then you look at your offering and say, okay, does my current offering speak to the new needs of this customer? You know, if they don't, what should I be offering? Or if they do, so my offering is still relevant, but is it still relevant in the format that I'm still offering it in? Do you understand what I'm saying? So the marketing conversations got to start there, reacquainting ourselves with these customers. So, you know, marketing process is a relationship. It's like a jollering. I don't know what it is in English, you know, courtship. Yeah.
Courtship, dating.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
so you gotta go back to that dating phase and get to know this person and understand what it is that is making them tick now. And then look at your product and say, am I aligned with this individual? Are they prepared to part with money to buy what I'm selling? That's where the journey's gotta start. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That's very informative, Mpho. Essentially, what I'm getting from there is that you need to be able to adapt and study the markets and understand what the changing needs of your consumer, just to summarize it. And then I'm going to move on to my next question, which is going to our next panel member, Mabato. So Mabato, my question for you is, so transition into the world after COVID-19 will be technology driven. That's a given, okay? So how do business adapt and ensure they remain relevant from a technology perspective?
I think one thing that the pandemic has shown us is that the necessity of taking your business online and really like integrating e-commerce, right, being one of the things. But I think one of the things that people didn't foresee and didn't think about is security. So I really see COVID really highlighting the necessity of government putting more stringent cybersecurity laws and policies in place, because now we will be handling a lot of data in terms of personal data, credit card data, etc., etc., etc. So I really see the government thinking thoroughly through that, and really I would advise them to go a more collaborative way, where we bring in different parties or stakeholders who are part of the e-commerce or technology space to come up or contribute to these policies, because technology is changing all the time. And so if we don't put in measures and laws or policies in place that allow to also adapt as technology changes, government will find itself where they're in a place where the laws that they have are always backdated, right? So that's just one of the things that they need to do, is ensure that the right cybersecurity laws are put in place. Because if they aren't put in place, then trust is lost. A lot of the things, and I think everyone can relate here, is that every time you think of doing an online transaction or even getting onto something like a Zoom call now lately, you think about security, right? And if your data is protected, if your conversation is protected. And so those are some of the things that need to be taken in place, because I think in South Africa and Africa as a whole, cybersecurity hasn't been that much of a concern or issue for our governments to focus on as in the past, because we had all the other types of crimes. But cyber crime is huge, and if our government doesn't take the necessary measures to put those laws and policies in place, it will come back to really haunt us in the future.
Thank you so much, Mabato, for that. And I think it ties back to just what Naledi touched on when she started, in terms of the legislation has to start adapting to the new ways of working and where the world is moving. And you want to certainly know, if you are going to be engaging in virtual platforms the entire time, that there's the right protection for you. Not only that, there's consequent management whereby there is a breach or a violation of your privacy and your security as you launch your company or transact in any form. Thank you for that. I think that's very relevant and applicable. So Naledi, I'm going to come back to you with a question again. So the current situation supports the notion that adapting or learning organizations are the ones that will survive. Okay, so what can business do to bolster their adaptability strategies?
Okay, look, I mean, in the world of business, change is unavoidable. You know, change is here, it's unavoidable. We all need to learn to adapt. We need to embrace ways that will and allow us as business leaders to change our businesses. So if companies want to stay on track, they must adopt to constant change before failure starts knocking on their doors. And the best way to do that, first and foremost, is embracing technology. It is here with us and it is here to stay. And, you know, embracing technological change and learning to use it will definitely benefit a lot of businesses. And, you know, being a country that's in a third world, where we've got quite a lot of challenges from infrastructure point of view, we've got challenges with data, resources, you know, so those are still some of the challenges that we have. However, I believe there are ways that we can, you know, fast track the adoption and get people to embrace technology and actually start using it to their advantage. And I think another way that can actually help them bolster the adoption is becoming more flexible and agile. That is how great opportunities come to organizations that can respond very quickly. So it's about being agile, being able to respond quickly, because customers value speed and quick turnaround times for services. And actually, most of the time you find that customers are willing to pay a little bit extra just for that quick response. So that is something that companies and business leaders can capitalize on, because that is definitely a competitive advantage. There's businesses that are fast and flexible. They generally reduce costs because they are able to manage their projects in such a way that it's a lot more efficient and a lot more effective. So they need to continuously review these types of capabilities. And then also learning to live with ambiguity and uncertainty, because we're living in a very complex world at the moment, the VUCA. So one of the major sources of that, I mean, comes with anxiety. So it's, you know, fear of the unknown. And it's basically the fact of the matter is that we're living in a world where things are changing at such a rapid rate. Very often when we make decisions, we have to make these decisions without having all the information, without all the facts. So it's learning to improvise and to adapt to different and unexpected situations that can give businesses and business leaders important skills that will enable them to navigate through these times of uncertainties. And that's exactly what most people require during these times. And that is something that will enable a lot of companies to enhance their strategies to adapt to these changing times. So that's basically some of the things that I would say are some of the key issues that business leaders need to look into.
Thank you so much, Naledi. That is a very powerful point, that companies need to adapt and they really need to move towards a more platforms, you know, with technology, which will also assist their staff as well, if we're being employee-centric, to deliver the best service possible. So thank you very much for that point. And I'm going to go back to you, Paul, for this one. How would you say the market and customer needs, how will the market and the customer needs change? Yes, that's the question.
Okay. Look, I think, as I mentioned previously, the way customers look at what they're buying, and that's how they define the value, of what they're buying is going to change. And I'll give you some example. I see one of the members of Leading Women Network is on the platform. So last Saturday, we were talking about things around future-proofing your income. And some of the things that people have started re-evaluating were things like eating out. That, you know, we eat out so much and we spend so much money, and now that we're not doing it and we see how much money we have in the pocket, that's got me thinking. That's a re-evaluation of a particular category or an industry. People started looking at, they were talking about how they look at debt and how they now start to see that how debt is suffocating them, or how not having debt is liberating them. So they're looking at a category. So the way they engage with debt is probably going to be different. They're looking at the use of vehicles. People are saying, we've got 3 vehicles in the yard and they've been sitting for 3 months, you know, and now we're starting to wonder, do we actually need all these cars? So there's things that are happening in the consumer psyche, re-evaluating all these buckets of engagement that they have with products and services. That is the one thing that is going to change. And as a business, if you're not aligned with that change, you're going to be selling nothing to no one. The second thing is, you know, how they engage with the categories. You must remember that this pandemic has impacted the way we think about hygiene. It has impacted the way we think about engaging with other human beings. It has impacted the way we think about education. Do we want to take our children to school? Do we not want to take our children to school? So as long as businesses are not part of that conversation in putting together their new value proposition, they will be in trouble. Because right now the consumer is having these internal conversations, re-evaluating how they're engaging with all these clusters of products and services.
Thank you very much, Paul. Essentially saying that as the consciousness of the consumer changes, the business needs to understand what becomes paramount in the day-to-day decisions and the lifelong commitment the consumer would want to engage in. We appreciate that. Moving on to Mabato, my question for you is, what are some of the major barriers for most businesses to be technologically driven, and how can they be overcome?
I think, you know, one of the things, going back to my first response earlier, was just like educating people around cybersecurity, right? Because it's something that's new. The security of your site, how secure your site is something that businesses will now have to look at now. You know, it's something that people have always said, oh, how secure is your site? Oh, I went onto your site, but I didn't go on because it's not secure. And you sort of brushed it away or put it in your back pocket or something like that. But now you really have to go back to really check the security of your site. Because if it's not secure, people are not going to be engaging with your site, right? Because they are afraid that they may get onto your site and they then may fall into a trap. So that's just one of the things. I would say as well, businesses have to start looking at AI and how AI or artificial intelligence is going to either propel them to the next stage or hinder them from growth, right? So about 2 days ago, Facebook announced that they'll be taking a shopping. You'll be allowed to transact or shop or have an online store through Facebook, right? And this really puts something else in place now, because people are thinking, okay, so now I can also have an online store through Facebook, which I thought was a social media platform. But what they've also said is that in the future, they will integrate AI where you'll be able to fit on your sunglasses, for instance. If you want to purchase a pair of sunglasses, you can fit them on using AI and see, okay, these are, I don't like these, or I do like these. And something like lipstick, you can also try that on using AI. So that now also changes the relationship that, going back to what Mpho said, the relationship that customers are having with products and customers are having with you. So if you have a standalone store, now you have to start looking at ways of having a virtual store, because as a store, I mean, as a customer, I want to feel the ambience of getting into a store and seeing all the garments and thinking, okay, I like that, I'll fit that, I'll fit that. But now you've got to integrate it onto a virtual store because I don't have time or I don't feel safe enough to go to a store itself, right? So those are just some of the things that we'll also have to start looking at. Businesses have to start looking at how to integrate AI. That alone is an HR issue, which Naledi can then also jump onto later, because now, a lot of times people think AI is a replacement of a human. It's not a replacement of a human, you know, it's not. There's a lot of things that computers can do, but there's a lot of things that humans can do as well that computers can't do. So we as humans and we as businesses have to start thinking, how can I integrate AI into my business so that all the things that require more effort for me to do, I can leave it up to a computer. And all the things that I can then focus on to help my business grow, I can focus on. AI is a good sense in that it gives us more time to focus on the things that we need to do. In other words, it gives us more time to work on the business and not in the business, which is essentially what a business owner should be doing.
Thank you so much, Mabatwe, for that. To the rest of our attendees, I'd like to encourage you to start you know, sending in questions if you have any question that you have. But yes, the second round of questions, a lot is coming through from our panelists in terms of companies needing to adapt to technology as it becomes more of a need, to integrating artificial intelligence and also understanding, you know, the pulse of the heartbeat of the consumer. So thank you very much. I'm just going to ask if anyone has a question, please feel free to send it through the chat so that we don't go over a topic and you already have a question in mind. It is a discussion, so we will be allowing those questions to come through to keep it flexible. But if there's nothing for now, I'm going to move on with the questions. So Naledi, I'm back to you now. What can companies do now already to start preparing for the new normal now, as we are all under lockdown?
Yeah, so that's quite an interesting one. Thank you so much for that question, because, you know, adaptation to change is not made in a day. To overcome this problem, you know, adapt your pace to your new environment. And, you know, as Bathu had mentioned earlier about, you know, AI and how it can actually help and enhance, you know, the business to become a lot more competitive. It really does require people to take a bit of time to understand, because, you know, right now, what this pandemic has actually done, it has brought the future to us. Not the other way around, because usually we go to the future. This pandemic has brought the future to us. So there's so much uncertainty. There's a lot of fear with so many people. So I really think this is just an opportunity for people to they just need to hold back and just go back and sit down and really think about what this all means. What is AI? And I don't think people have actually had time to really sit and really think about it and understand to the core. What a lot of people have is just misguided ideas about AI and the fact that it's going to take people's jobs and, you know, it's going to lead to retrenchments and so many other things. And people don't realize how we can actually enhance, you know, businesses and actually create even more employment and actually create more opportunities for us. So it's just a matter of taking the time to understand. And this has definitely propelled us to get to that level. So we are forced into understanding more about what this new future holds for us. And so we need to be able to, like I mentioned earlier, willingness to embrace change will enable businesses to start preparing for the new normal. And in some instances, this will require acquiring new skills that will prepare us to deal with these changes. And we need to unlearn so that we can learn. There's so many of the old ways of doing things that are ingrained within us. And in order for us to be able to adapt and to successfully transition into this new normal, we need to unlearn so that we can make room for new changes and for us to learn new ways of doing things. And I think a way of also preparing companies for this new normal is to use this opportunity for employee evolution. By that, I mean, this is basically the best time to help employees learn new skills and grow professionally. So most people currently have a lot of time and a bit of space because of the fact that we're not traveling as much. So there's reduced time spent on traffic, and this can actually help employees to level up their contribution for the company. So this will actually help a lot of businesses, where business owners can use this opportunity to empower their employees so that they can actually learn new skills that will be required for them to be able to handle this new technological sphere that we are all entering. And also making sure that there's a lot of inclusivity when you have meetings. You know, these meetings that we're having now in Zoom, it's no longer person to person. So it's important to make sure that you share and give everybody an opportunity to share their voices and their ideas. It's quite important to encourage team building during this time within employees, just to make sure that everybody feels part of the team and everybody can adapt and nobody's left behind. And those are some of the ways in which companies can start preparing for this new normal.
Thank you very much, Naledi. That was a rich answer that we got, but I want to summarize some of the important points that I got from it. First is that Naledi's saying that yes, it's a fast-paced environment that's happening around us right now. We're all the technology is advancing, the future has been brought to us, but we also still need to take the time, take it all in, while still staying relevant and moving with the times, but to consider what this means and apply it, and how this obviously benefits the employee and the employer in terms of how we are able to then upskill the people who are working for companies, and they have more time now to reflect development and so forth. This speaks to how the employee wants to be happy at work as well. And this is how you adjust to create a positive employment culture. But I'm not the HR expert, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Paul, the following question is for you. So how do we adopt a cautious approach to restarting work life, or do we just trust our current executions and deliver for clients from home?
Well, as somebody who comes from a predominantly face-to-face business, you know, our job is to connect our clients to their markets, and that involves a lot of, you know, being in the mix or being on the ground. So for us, then the protection and the safety of all involved is paramount, right? You know, the safety of lives is key. And what that has kind of forced us to do is to look at how we balance the two worlds. I mean, at the moment, we've completely gone digital, we've gone mobile, but you know, there's conversations about post-COVID, how do we reconnect? How do we get, you know, have that personal, you know, face-to-face engagement again with the consumer without putting people at risk? So we're exploring at the moment combinations of both those worlds. You know, how do we combine social distancing with technology? For example, we engage with consumers who are in rural communities, in peri-urban communities, and we talk a lot about technology and AI. But you think about people who are in rural communities, you think about people who are in peri-urban areas who don't have access. You think about the cost of data. You know, just to be on this webinar on its own, that is a privilege. So, you know, what this means is that, yes, we are moving forward. We are moving forward at an incredibly significant pace. But how do we do it together without leaving others behind, and wedging that gap even wider? So it's a very big question for the research industry at the moment. So it is a combination of both. So we are embracing technology more, we are automating our processes, and we are developing more robust systems, you know. So, but at the same time, what this has done for us as a business, it has forced us to look at how we offer value to our customers, as I've been saying, and through that, we found new customers to offer to. So technology, our move towards technology kind of opened up a new world and a new market altogether. So just from this pandemic, we've moved from just offering a service to one segment to multiple segments as well. So aligned with what Naledi was saying is that, you know, there's a lot of opportunities that are going to come from what seems to be a possible minor misfortune, but it's how we look at it that is probably going to make our way forward a little bit easier.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Mpho. And I love what you've just touched on, that we you know, there's been these memes that are circulating around on social media, which talks about how, you know, having Wi-Fi or data is actually, it shouldn't just be a privilege, and it's not a luxury. It's actually a necessity, especially for the way the world is moving, and we need to move together. We can no longer stay in spaces where inequality just flies if we want progress. Because for businesses to thrive, or even small businesses to thrive, there has to be a working economy. So we have to grab everyone along with it. Thank you for that, Mabato. Very insightful. Paul, sorry. My next question is for Mabato. So I'm already thinking about you, Mabato. And my question to you is, in terms of fostering or supporting for e-commerce, what initiatives do you foresee government and business putting in place as they reconsider how to establish more resilience?
That's a good question, in fact, because for the past, I think 2 years, 3 years, so government's been going on about the fourth industrial revolution, like it was coming. It's something that's so far away, we're approaching it. But what people don't realize that the fourth industrial revolution was here, and we were part of it, right? But what the pandemic has done, it's been both a blessing and a curse. And you know, this is very controversial of me to say, in that it's fast-paced everything, and it's made everyone realize that the fourth industrial revolution is here, and we've got to adapt to it, right? So just around what government's done, and this also goes back to government had previously restricted e-commerce for until last Thursday when they opened it up, right? Because they didn't think that e-commerce was a necessity in this country. And it's also I think a lot of what's happened as was that there's also a notion or a belief that e-commerce is for the elite, and it's not for people who are in townships or in rural areas or peri-urban areas, right? There's that notion. And I want to actually, I wish that I think we should demystify that notion that e-commerce is only for people in suburban areas, because that's not true, you know? Research shows that even people in townships, in peri-urban areas have access, and they do utilize e-commerce, right? And so by government restricting e-commerce back then, they thought that because it wasn't a necessity. And when they got word from people, or a push rather from South Africans to say, open up e-commerce because it's something that we need, then they saw, no, and I'm actually quite keen to see the results of how the economy function or accelerates or becomes better because of them opening up e-commerce right now, right? And I think what it's done for government, it's also made them wake up and start thinking that they need to put the necessary measures in place to make South Africa a more inclusive country, because a lot of people have been forgotten, you know? So that goes to the case of connectivity, where there are still areas in South Africa where people do not have connectivity. So this it's going to force government to start going back to the drawing board and seeing how we can get, because connectivity has been always doomed to be a luxury. It's a necessity. Like water and electricity is a necessity, in the times that we are living in now, connectivity is also a necessity. So government needs to then go back to the drawing board and see how do they get connectivity into the rural areas, into the peri-urban areas, because it's as necessary as electricity. If we are expecting people to thrive and to especially thrive in these times, we need to ensure that they're connected, right? But I think government also needs to go have a conversation again with our telecommunications companies around the costing of our data or costing of our communication platforms, right? Because in not even South Africa alone, but in Africa as a whole, in most third world countries, data is a luxury. And so we need to start having conversations around that, around which necessary platforms can be at least 0 rated or minimally rated. For instance, if you know that people need to access a platform to shop for essentials, then surely you should make that platform 0 rated, or you should then make it at a minimal rate, because people, that's a basic necessity. It's like them getting water. They need to get access to that site if they are expected to then use that e-commerce platform, right? So I think more than anything else, business needs to come together. Small, medium, and large business, this is the place where we shouldn't be seeing each other as competitors, but we should come together and unite and collaborate and find ways to then also push government to start taking these kind of things to mind and to start taking them seriously. So I don't think we should be looking at this as a competitive thing, as, oh, larger business is going to benefit more than small business. Everyone should be benefiting from this. And if we don't unite as all type of businesses to push government to make connectivity an essential and to make access to connectivity is an essential and also less expensive, then we really are working against each other and we're not going to get anywhere.
Thank you so much. I felt that in my soul. That was very passionate. I like you touched on so many points there, Mabato. I think one, the data one is personal. I mean, we've seen the trends. Data must fall and everything. But you are touching on the need for communities to be able to access this, for young people who are looking for employment to be able to reach out to your Dalitso holding, to be able to get interviews if you are back in the farms and you don't have the money to travel. So it's a very deep one, and it's one of the bigger challenges that the government has right now, also while trying to compensate for why 20 years post-democracy, there's still places that don't have water.
And sorry, if I may jump in, when you brought in the Dalitso and how, actually, I have a thing about South Africans as well, and young people in particular, because I work a lot with them, is that we think data is expensive, but they are actually on social media platforms. They are on TikTok. And the kind of videos they are recording, people are recording TikTok. They are on Instagram. They are on all these social media platforms. And I think it's about time we start educating our people about how to use connectivity to empower themselves and not ready to bring themselves down. Because the way young people and the way people are using data, I've really got something to pick with them there, because it's not that they don't have access to data, it's how they're using it. So we need to start educating people on how to use data to empower themselves, to get onto sites like Dalitso in order to get empowered and to apply for jobs, to get onto sites like Redshift, to get trained in order to get opportunities. So I think really we need to start really empowering our own people about how to use data and how to really empower themselves with the data that they have.
Thank you so much for that, Mabato. You're touching right home with that. I think we will all agree the right conversations need to be had while we are still going to, attack all these big companies about your MTNs, your Vodacom, about how the data prices. Also, the right behavior needs to be fostered amongst our young people to make sure they catch the wave and they're not excluded. I read an article that Naledi shared with me that said that millennials are now experiencing a second financial crisis within a period of 12 years. So that means the need to empower them to be able to be part of rebuilding their economy Powerful. I'm not a panelist. I'm a moderator. Moving on. I have to remind myself, but thank you for that, Mabato. Very, very nicely put. Very, very passionate. Okay. So my question now goes back to Naledi, which is how to build the new company culture post-COVID-19.
Thank you so much for that question, Cindy. It's actually quite pertinent at this point in time, you know, given that we are easing our way back into the economy. We are starting to lift the lockdown, and you know, within the next couple of days, we'll be entering level 3. And the COVID-19 isolation measures have abruptly changed ways of working. And that is going to stay with us for a long time. Some of the changes may be temporary, but I think quite a number of them will become permanent ways of doing things. So the rapid shift to remote working is cause for significant anxiety amongst the workforce. So a lot of people are quite anxious. It's a new way of doing things. It's something very different. We are all used to waking up in the morning, getting dressed, driving to the office. And it's going to put a lot of company cultures to the test. A new culture post-COVID-19 is one that embraces change. It's one that recognizes the new challenges that employees are facing and encourages them to take initiative, do things differently and more effectively. It's the type of culture that allows people to, you know, use this opportunity, because we are all learning and we are all learning new ways of doing. So it encourages that type of safe space for people to be able to do new things and experiment. So this new culture can support this shift that can actually help them to ease into this new transition. And I think it will definitely help to drive productivity amongst employees, which is something that a lot of organizations actually need. You want productive employees, and that's the reason why you hire them. And the new culture that I'm talking about, it actually starts with empathy. Company leaders will need to listen more to their employees' concerns, because as I've highlighted earlier, this is new. A lot of people are very anxious. A lot of people are afraid. There's a lot of fear. So empathy plays a very big role in how company leaders or business leaders are going to have to start embracing this new culture change, because really everybody has concerns right now. So listening more attentively to concerns of the employees is going to be very key. And you know, many people have fear. There is a lot of uncertainty. And so this is an opportunity to be more understanding and to build relationships with people that we work with as business leaders. You know, because very often as business leaders, you just come in, give orders, and then walk out. This is an opportunity to start understanding and building more effective team members and working with everybody. And this will also enable the company and the team members to work on new and more collaborative ways. And when you start doing that, people start becoming a lot more innovative. They start being able to contribute a lot more to the company's ideas. And this can actually take the company to the next level, because now everyone is working together. There's that inclusivity that I was referring to a lot more earlier. And so this is basically the new culture that we are talking about post-COVID-19. And this is basically what the business leaders of today need to look at.
Thank you for that, Naledi. You know, it's interesting that you touch on that, because this is where the conversation about leadership has been leading up to. I mean, I follow Bridget Hassan on LinkedIn, who's been talking about the new ways of leadership, getting people involved, listening to your employees, and also the quote that she likes sharing that says, train your people so that they're able to leave your company, but then treat them so well that they don't want to leave the company. So thank you for that. Before I carry on to other questions, I just want to see what's happening in our chat. Miriam had something to say for Mabato, where she says she hit the nail on the head, and how we use data to empower ourselves is critical. Let's continue to plant seeds regarding such everywhere we go. Thank you for that comment, Miriam. And also Miriam has a comment again for you, Naledi. She said that you mentioned empathy going forward. There are leaders who are stuck in their old ways and they may not have had empathy. Then how can they be inculcated into the new ways? Oh, it's actually a question. So I'm going to go through that again, Naledi. She says, you mentioned empathy going forward, okay? There are leaders who are stuck in their old ways and they may not have had empathy. Then how can that be inculcated into the new ways of leading?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we are all in this together. This pandemic is affecting everybody, including the business leaders themselves. And I really think that, as I've mentioned, it's an opportunity for one as a business leader to start realizing that, you know what, these are people that I work with, and everything that they are going through is something that I'm also going through. And it's an opportunity to actually build the relationship with them, get to know them more individually, get to understand their concerns and their needs, and that, you know, looking out for each other, providing that emotional support. It's not just only about providing technical support as a leader, but it's about being there for your employees, making sure that, you know, they have all the resources that are required to do the work that they need to do. And by resources, I'm not just talking physical resources. I'm talking resources in terms of emotional support and, you know, picking up the phone and, you know, calling, because not every call or email has to be business related. Sometimes you just want to pick up the phone and just to find out how people are doing. How are they coping during these hard times? Because all of us are impacted by COVID-19, whether you are old or young, rich or poor. I certainly feel like this is the type of pandemic that is kind of like, you know, the playing field is kind of leveled because it doesn't discriminate. Everybody gets a taste of what this is, whether you are the boss or the employer or the employee. So this is an opportunity as business leaders to use empathy as a way of creating a new culture within the work environment. And that's basically what I would say, because people should be moved by this. You know, this is an opportunity for people to work together and collaborate. And I definitely really think it would be a missed opportunity for business leaders not to use this opportunity at looking at new ways of creating new cultures that embrace all of the what I highlighted earlier. I hope that answers your question, Miriam.
I hope it certainly does, Miriam. I'd also just like to bring everyone's attention to an article or a link that was shared by Eugene Brockman, so you can have a look at that after we are done here. Okay, so I have my next question for Mpho. All right, so Mpho, okay, just a moment, technology. Okay, the question for you is, has COVID-19 pushed forward the fourth industrial revolution, and how can South Africa benefit?
Okay, I guess as Bathu has put it is that we've been here, we've been living here. I think what it has really done, it has forced us to embrace technology a whole lot more, to make it part of our daily lives. But it has also raised the issue of access. But I think Bathu raised a very important point around attitude to access. I think that's also a critical one. that we need to consider. And when we talk about how can South Africa benefit, I think this revolution or this particular crisis is bringing us, it has exposed the discrepancies between the social strata that we live in, right? It's glaring and we all feel it from wherever we are. So it's talking about how do we bridge that gap so that everybody is on board and people are not left behind. So again, it speaks to the issue of access. And how can South Africa benefit? Second part is, how do we then make this part of daily life? So Mabatu talks about if a person that is in the rural villages has an interview with Dalito, but they are Mbumbulu, they can have the interview, right? There's no need for Ugogo must give up her pension fund so that you can gibela and go to Joburg, you know. So these are the things that we need to be exploring and need to be looking at. But the other thing that I've found is South Africa can benefit from building global networks and relationships as small business owners. Currently, I'm sitting with 2 projects of just digitizing our organization. One project is sitting in India with a team of people that we, as an organization, we only know digitally. And another one is sitting with a South African team developing something completely different that we also know digitally. So we start to have access to these global markets, to these global resources, to these global skills and tools that we can then use to propel ourselves to the next level. Digitization gives us a global view. It opens up our minds. So when we're limited to what we know and what we can imagine, when we open ourselves up to this new world, we start to see possibilities. And we go, oh, okay, oh, wow, they did it in Brazil. Oh, you know, they did it in India. Oh, they did it in the United. Oh, okay. So it opens up our mind. But we need to bear in mind that it is a competitive world. It is competitive because it is fast, it is innovative, it's about being current, relevant to today. So it's about keeping at the pulse. And what that means is that we need to have a different work ethic. I'm very concerned about our work ethic as South Africans. We're gonna need to, you know, to stay abreast and to stay competitive and to stay as part of the global landscape. We're going to have to review our work ethic. And I think, Naledi, I don't know, you can speak to that, but our pace, our attention to detail, our delivery protocols, all of that is going to need to be reviewed. And that speaks to the quality of our workforce.
Most
Thank
definitely.
you. Okay.
Yeah, no,
yes,
I definitely second you on that. I really definitely think that it's very key for us to step up. And I definitely feel that this is an opportunity for us as Africans to, you know, this 4th industrial revolution, you know, it's an opportunity for us to actually catch up to the rest of the world. And we need to use this opportunity to our benefit. You know, as they say, you snooze, you lose. So it's about how we use this time, this opportunity, and let's just hope that everybody gets to realize how important this time is for getting us to that next level, and not, you know, and not mess up this opportunity. It's a great opportunity. Yeah.
It is a great opportunity indeed. Thank you for that, Mpho and Naledi. And it also touches to what Mabato mentioned earlier, that yes, it is a competitive space right now, but also when it comes to companies, we need to also start developing a culture of working together, because you find that most businesses are competing for just for a quota of the pie. When the rest of the pie is in the outskirts where people are still deemed, are still basically living primitive lives because no one thinks they deserve access to the digital platform. But if we work together, and that touches on your CSI projects to make sure that the information is out there, the pie gets bigger and no one has to kill each other for the pie. Everyone gets something out of it. And that's the ideal world. The practical is another. I'm going to move on to the next question, which is for Mabato. And Mabato, I'm going to go to this question for you. According to Dave Cook, for millennials, this is our second global financial crisis in 12 years, okay? As someone who's involved with youth developments, what recommendations would you say are relevant in ensuring we minimize the risk of an even poor generation post-COVID-19?
Wow, as someone who works with young people and a millennial myself,
I've been waiting for that comment.
Hey, I'm a millennial myself, so.
What this pandemic has done for millennials is that it started showing the more mature generation and all the leaders out there that millennials are going to have a side hustle, whether you like it or not. So you better start embracing it. We are just programmed that way. You know, I think the post or even the current structures, what they did to us, that they boxed us and they said, you have a job, you clock in at 8, you clock out at 5 or so whatever time, and then that's it. And that's why millennials were not really thriving in the traditional sense, right? And then they were dubbed to be, unconventional, lazy, etc. Or I know the one thing that's always going on, that millennials are not loyal. It's not about that we're not loyal. It's that millennials, we really are going to have a side hustle whether we like it or not. And I think what this pandemic has done is that it's then allowed us and leadership to see that, okay, as long as Bathu delivers, it's fine. She'll have the side hustle. But what I liked about what Naledi said in terms of the training earlier is that if employees start empowering their employees and they start making them see that there's more to that than this. For instance, if you start empowering your employee to go and do a web development course, which means that they will start updating your website. Instead of you then having to go pay an IT guy to come do it. You've then gotten another resource into your company, right? But what it means for young people going forward is that what we don't realize is that the West may have all the solutions, right? But they still haven't figured out Africa. And Africa is where tomorrow is. They're still trying to figure out how we do things on the continent. And they still haven't figured that out. Google, for instance, and even online shopping is not thriving on the continent because we don't have addresses everywhere we go. So for us young people, it only makes us think, how can we come up with innovative solutions for Africans as Africans? Because we understand the landscape that we work in. We understand the African market because we are part of the African market. And so I think for young people, this pandemic has posed not only an opportunity for us to come up with innovative solutions, but it's also said to us, what can we do to contribute to the prosperity of Africa? Because I believe that the next big thing is going to come out of Africa. The next big tech solution, the next big tech platform is coming out of Africa from young Africans, because we understand this market more than anybody else. And yes, the West may have these solutions, and they've seen that they can't impose these solutions on Africans because we work on a different platform altogether. We are a different market to understand. And so they come here and they think, oh, this is how it's supposed to work. It's not going to work on this continent because we do things our way. And so the one thing I'd say is that, you know, if any of the people on this platform have young people working for them, is that you need to embrace their innovative ways of thinking and start thinking, how can you integrate that thinking into your company? Because we have ways, we think out of the box. We just can't help it, you know. When people see problems, we see solutions. And so that's the way we need to start thinking.
Thank you so much for that, Mabato. And I think you forgot to mention one point there. On behalf of all the millennials, we need to be incentivized when we come up with these solutions. Thank you. Okay,
lady, that's for you. That's for you.
Allow me to use you. You're the panelist. Okay, we have some commentary from another millennial, Asanda Ndaba. Okay, she says that I think that there's going to be a lot of shift and change in terms of what is so-called business hours. Business will have to be accommodative, especially to working moms, because during the day, productivity is less likely especially with kids not going to school. The focus should be more in having work done as expected by the business than hours worked. Some people are in environments that allow them to be more productive in late hours, that is outside of your 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And she says, just to add on what Naledi said regarding business being more empathetic towards employees and the changing work culture. Thank you so much for that, Asanda. It speaks precisely to what everyone has touched on, flexibility, empathy, and understanding what people need to become the best they can be at work. There's also a comment again from Miriam. Yes.
Can I maybe add on to what Naledi had said about empathy, but also vulnerability? Leaders need to be more vulnerable with their teams, you know. This pandemic has thrown everybody into the deep waters where nobody knows what's happening. No one has the answers, not even our president, and we've seen it. Not even our leaders have the answers. And I think what this allowed us is that it's allowed leaders to show their vulnerability. Don't be afraid to tell your team that, I don't know, I'm figuring it out as we go along, but let's figure it out together. And I think so many times, you know, leaders want to come across like they know everything, but this pandemic has thrown us into deep waters. Now we're thinking, how do we get out of this? So let's not be afraid to be vulnerable with our team members.
Thank you, Mabato. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Absolutely on point. I want to go back because
I just want to add on to that, as well as just to touch on Asanda's point. As I had mentioned earlier, so some of the key things or some of the key policies or legislation, when I was highlighting that point earlier, was that some of the key policies that a lot of businesses will have to look into some of the flexi working hours, because you know, we're no longer in a business environment where we're having your normal 8 to 5 type of environment. And as you mentioned, I think a lot of how productivity would need to be measured, because we all are currently working in our homes, and we know that everybody is not sitting on their computers from 8 until 5 in the evening. So what needs to be done is we would need to look at productivity from a different point of view. You would need to look at KPIs. You would need to refocus. Instead of focusing on hours spent, you need to now refocus on the key outputs. So you would communicate as a business leader to your employees that this and this and this and this is what I expect. And how they do it, when they do it, they can do it after hours, they can wake up in the mornings, because we all know that everybody's navigating. I mean, you know, some people have small babies at home, large families, they don't have a private area where they can sit and work, you know, in a very quiet space. And so some people would need to have to work after hours once everybody's gone to sleep, and that's the only time they can be productive. So it's not necessarily so much about how many hours you are clocking, it's about the output and what it is that you are delivering. You know, and then Batu highlighted on a very, very key issue that I had mentioned earlier as well, is that the key, it's actually quite important that as business leaders start recognizing the strengths and actually leveraging on the strengths that we have amongst all the employees within our organization, because there's different generations. You know, there's the boomers, there's the Generation X, there's the millennials. So everybody's got something different to bring to the table. And if we're going to all collaborate, it will actually be more beneficial to the organization, because you know, these are people that are working very closely with the customers, their ears are on the ground, and they understand a lot more in terms of what customer needs are. And there's a lot more that they can bring to the table. And that's the reason why I was also mentioning earlier that creating a safe space where people can experiment, where people can come up with suggestions and you know, encourage that as part of the new culture of the organization, that will go a long way in getting things going and helping everybody work together. And certainly coming up with more you know, incentivizing people in different ways as well, making people feel like they are part of the organization. It will want, you know, people will feel a lot more valued. People will feel that their contribution is recognized within the organization. So what you're saying is actually quite a valid point. And I definitely really do think that it's something that needs to be looked at as well, because, you know, if we are all going to be collaborating and working together towards taking the company to the next level, it would actually be a good thing to relook at some of those things and how we, you know, previously incentivize people. This is going to change. You know what? The landscape is changing altogether. Everything is going to change. It's not just that, you know, it's going to change in so many ways. So it's quite exciting at the same time. It really just depends on how you look at change. Yeah. So
Okay,
that's my 2 cents worth of.
That was 5 cents, Naledi. Thank you very much for it. Thank you. And certainly, we all agree that the workplace needs to change, the culture needs to change, how we look at young people in business needs to change, how we enable innovative ideas, collaborations, and so forth, and the incentives around it need to change. Whilst we're on the incentives point, Miriam Papo also came in on that one and said she's generation Gen X. She's Gen X, but she was waiting for the incentive part. Okay, and we have, I think, Ariva. Please forgive me if I didn't pronounce it right. She says that I feel the private sector and business will adapt faster than government. Arriving at 4IR mentality. South Africa is one of the strongest countries in the world when it comes to policy formulation, legislation. Our weak point is implementation, but it's also in government's inability to implement that there are many opportunities. That is so well said. Would any of our panelists would like to say anything to Ariva's point there?
Yes, no, certainly. I definitely really do agree with what Ariva has had to say, that, you know, our government is trying their level best. I definitely do see a lot more changes, and I really do see quite a bit of progress. But I definitely do feel that we do have quite a lot of policies in place, but I really think that the core focus should now be on the implementation and actually working on making sure that we start implementing some of these things, because I think most of the time what we do is we draw up policies and, you know, we just continue drawing up more and more and more policies without following through, you know, implementing and making sure that we have we evaluate, monitoring and evaluation. That's actually very key. So apart from just the implementation part, when you implement, there needs to be follow-up. Follow-up means you need to monitor whether what was intended to be done is done, and you evaluate whether, you know, it has this thing performed the way we had expected it to, and if not, how? What do we look at? How do we go back to the drawing board and fix this or tweak that? So we really need to work on follow through and just making sure that we implement all the policies that we formulate. So definitely, I agree on that point.
So
okay.
To that, Cindy, is that
yes,
we need to hold our governments accountable to implementation, you know, and I think that's where we failed as a nation, is that we feel all these policies, but we don't hold them accountable to the implementation. And I think we don't also realize how, as business, we have so much power when we work together, but because we're always working against each other, because I want to compete with Naledi and I want to do better than Naledi, we kind of miss the entire thing, right? And then what's happened is that then when we see all these policies, but when they don't get implemented, then we point it back to government like, oh, you didn't implement. I think like we need to also hold them accountable for implementation. And that's where business can play a huge role in that, because we play a huge factor in contributing to this economy, this country's economy. And in so doing that, we should then be able to have a voice in the implementation. And so a lot of this goes back to us taking back our power as individuals and as businesses. And I think, you know, South Africans, we've really gotten to a point where we're so quick to criticize and judge our government, but we actually aren't holding them accountable. So how can we criticize them when we don't hold them accountable? You know, how many of us read those gazettes that come out? How many of us read those policies and hold them accountable? None of us do that. And so it's about time we also take our power back and we hold them accountable to what they say they're going to do. Because as business, we have a role to play in that, and we've got that power.
Thank you so much for that, Mabato. We are going to comment on everything, but I want to quickly get back to Paul, who's going to have to leave us at 4:30 because she's got another meeting. So I want to get to her question very fast so she can have her commentary quickly. So Paul, this question is for you. Is there a systematic way to how business have to reconfigure and rethink the strategy to future plans? Your mic is muted. Yes.
Okay, here we go. So yeah, thanks for that. I think what's going to be important is that businesses are going to have to develop a customer-centric decision-making process to drive innovation and to drive sales. That's going to be important. So it goes back to this idea of reconnecting with your market and making sure that your product is relevant. The other thing that I foresee happening, and that will be helpful for businesses, is to go with a customized approach to solving customer problems, because in this new normal, there won't be a one-size-fits-all. So the more flexible and adaptable businesses are the businesses that are going to thrive. And I'm fascinated that everybody has mentioned this idea of empathy amongst leaders, but in this case, empathy within brands and organization is going to be important in driving brand affinity, brand connection, and ultimately brand loyalty. So brands and organizations that make sure that they understand and provide solutions that solve problems for customers are the ones that are going to be the driving brand affinity and loyalty. And lastly, when you've got that empathy and that affinity, you become a brand that connects and resonates with customers. And those are the brands that are going to win in the future. So, you know, working in the industry that I am in, you know, I think there's a lot of assumption that people are going to buy a product because it's out there. I mean, I've put it out there. Why are people not buying? We're going to work a little bit harder to get those sales in the future, because it's more than just product. It's more than just a service. It is about affinity. It is about empathy. It is about connection. And my CEO is also here as well. Thank you so much for having me on the call. I'm going to leave in the next 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you.
We can see the CEO is demanding the attention. Thank you so much, Mpho, and we appreciate your contributions today. They're going to help a lot of people grow and just understand what's happening around them, particularly speaking to what the market requires and the market research they need to engage in. And I like what you just said in terms of it's not just about empathy, because that's an internal strategy. It's about brand positioning, how you put it out there, and the empathy, you know, that sells to the people, thus encouraging brand loyalty. So thank you very much, Mpho. Have a good one. Okay. All right. I'm going to quickly go to the chat. Okay, so there was one from Tseho Ramucha or Ramuchoa. She said, indeed, Mabato, a bottom-up approach and figuring it out together with staff members. That is to your comments earlier. And there's also Daphne who's just moved, that this is sweet. To see a corporate woman with a laptop and a baby Mpho on your lap. This shows that we are not just women, but also mothers. Yes, we are more than our titles, and we are more than our jobs and our pedigrees. We are just people at the end of the day. Tabisa says that on holding the government to account, I think that one of the best ways to hold the state accountable is that business and civil society need to band together and organize. If people are organized into groups and we petition the state regarding a particular cause, that would go a long way towards holding government to account. If the petitioning does not work, then we can still have the recourse to our courts, which are tasked with ensuring that all state action is aligned with the Constitution and that the decisions of the government are rational. But it starts with us, the people. We must organize. A very, very strong point coming across there from Thabisa in terms of all stakeholders banding together and holding the government accountable. Okay, so I think we have run over time.
This is why I was going to say I've got to go. Yeah, my now.
Okay, I think we have gone through the most important questions. So I'm just going to have last comments from our panelists in light of everything that's come through from the chat and so forth. And then we are going to look towards wrapping up.
So I'll go first because I've got to rush. But I think on my side, thank you so much for being part of the panel. I learned a lot from everyone, including it was a nice interactive session. But my parting short words would be that let's not let the e-commerce and the fourth industrial revolution and what COVID is doing to our businesses keep us down. Let's not deter and take away our motivation to run our businesses. Let's see what lessons can we learn out of this. If anything, what this pandemic has done for business is that it's allowed us to all take a step back, reevaluate, re-strategize, and start planning for the future, which is something that most businesses just don't do because we're so caught up in the everyday activities and we never take a step back and we never take time to just look on the outside and look into our businesses. And this time has really forced everyone to do that. And I think more than anything else, if you're a business owner or even as an individual, you need to question yourself and say to yourself, how do I want to walk out of this pandemic? Do I want to walk out better? Being a better individual, being a better business person, being a better employee, being a better partner, parent, whatever it may be, whatever role, whatever hat you wear. This pandemic has brought you face to face with your worst enemy. And you can only make it through if you come out being your best. And so don't let technology put you down, and don't think that you need to be a scientist in order to embrace this moment. It doesn't take a scientist for you to embrace technology. It's in the little things. So many resources are out there for us to equip ourselves with new ways of doing things. There's so many courses that are out there for free. Let's take these opportunities to invest in ourselves, because the only way we can actually thrive is by investing in ourselves. Our businesses thrive by us investing in ourselves first. Then we can invest into our businesses. So that's what I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mabato. Thank you for well put. Let us invest in ourselves, and yes, enjoy your afternoon. Thank you so much. Okay, Naledi, anything from you?
Yes. Wow, this has actually been amazing. It's been such a mind-blowing session. It's just a pity that time is not on our side, but this was actually really, really interesting. And I think from my end, I would say that the erosion of confidence will make trust way more important than ever before. And this is basically something that both Mpho and Mabato highlighted. And that the focus will be on confidence building through every channel, which is primarily what business leaders should be focusing on. So increased trust, transparency, and empathy. Those are the key virtues that business leaders would need to be focusing on. So business leaders and employees must understand and support each other like never before, because people at this point in time are sharing more about their personal situations with their colleagues. And as a result, they are creating an expectation of humanity, active listening, support, and connection. So these are some of the things that are going to be the key highlights, as I had mentioned, for the new company cultures that we as the leaders need to be calculating going forward. And it's about working together. Nobody has the answers. This pandemic is new to all of us. And it's quite important that as a business leader, allow yourself to be vulnerable and allow people to be able to contribute and let them come up with solutions as well, because you don't have all the solutions as the business owner. So when you allow everybody to come on board and collaborate in creating solutions to some of the problems, because the reason why this is so complex and the reason why we need to adopt, it's a probe, test, act type of motion. So that's what you do when you are dealing with something that is complex, because what worked yesterday is not going to work today or tomorrow. So you're going to probe, and then you get feedback, you test and act. Probe, you know, and so forth. And that's primarily what it's all about. And so what I have learned from this pandemic is that we are all in this together, and that we all need one another, and that we should all work together as business leaders, as employees, as the government, civil society at large. We all need each other to get through this. And we will, definitely. And I'm quite optimistic that we will see post-COVID-19, and by next year this time, this will be a thing of the past. But we all need to work together to ensure that happens, obviously. And those are basically my parting words.
Thank you so much for that, Naledi. Before I do the formal wrap up, I'll go through the last comments that's there. Riva said, this is an aha moment. Water, electricity, and connectivities are basic necessities. And Miriam says, thank you, ladies, for such an informative and engaging session. Let's not let this crisis go to waste. I do agree we should collaborate more. So that brings us to the end of this very passionate, interesting, engaging topic around what COVID-19 has done and the new ways of working, looking at a workplace into the future. And thank you so much for the insights from an HR perspective. You know, from technology, and also just incorporating market research. We are only as better as we allow ourselves to be. So you can either sit home and be depressed about what's happening, or you can start checking where the pulse and the wave is going and start seeing the positive. We can't control what COVID-19 does, but we can control who we become out of it. And I really love the comment that came. It just came in late. Tabisa's comment about holding the government is banding together, and it is not holding the government accountable, being a troll on Twitter and sharing the Gigaba videos. It's accountability in motion. Read the statute, read the Gazette, look at what's happening, then start advocating, start signing the right type of petitions. Let all that energy go towards the right type of you know, the right type of energy to fix solutions, and we are supposed to be supporting each other. With that said, thank you again to Dalito Holdings and Madame Naledi for organizing this. Please make sure you follow the social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, okay, just to stay up to date with the services and offerings. Apart from that, yes, everyone have a lovely afternoon until the next one. Thank you.
And also, you know, just a word of thanks from Dalito to you, Cindy Mhlongo. Thank you so much for moderating this webinar session. It was actually fantastic. You did such an absolutely great job. Thank you so much.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. And we hope to see you again next week, same time, same place.
Signing out. Bye.